Question?
Patrick Patrick, economics major. Give us, as I heard in your list of accomplishments on the compensation committee, give us your perspective on executive compensation, and is it justified, and just kind of Wall Street perspective. We hear a lot from politicians about the evils, but from your point of view, executive compensation.
You will never see, well, I shouldn't say never. I'm going to live a lot less time than you are. You're not going to see over the next few years the same kind of compensation packages, particularly out of Wall Street. And by Wall Street, please understand we're talking about the industry. We're not talking about a place that runs, about 12 blocks between Trinity Church and the East River. This is an entire industry. Birmingham has a financial services industry, Charlotte, Chicago, LA, San Francisco. So all of them, and when I talk about the lack of a pot at the end of the rainbow, it's going to be a much smaller pot.
Where's that pressure going to come from? I serve on a compensation committee of a publicly traded company. I know that we're certainly feeling the pressure, at least, to be able to justify our executives' compensation packages. Do you actually see regulation coming from Congress, for example, that would actually regulate executive pay in any way?
No, I think that in the case of the 9 banks that borrowed money from the government, you'll see some strictures put on them in terms of golden parachutes, escape packages, that kind of thing. I don't think the government, at least the current government, and we will most definitely have a change come a couple of weeks from now, I think. I don't think that government really wants to regulate salaries. I think that there could be some new taxation put on a certain level of compensation that might also restrict some of the pay packages. But where there are great smart minds, they generally find a way to get around those rules and regulations through stock options or whatever.
We have time for one more question. Kara?
Mr. Johnston, Michael Cronbach, economics and finance major. 2 questions, actually.
I don't know if you're allowed to, Michael.
The first is, given that the Treasury is printing dollars left and right, do you think that we'll see some sort of inflationary problem before we kind of find a bottom, so to speak? And secondly, is it possible that in the increasing regulation that we will possibly overregulate and then constrict markets?
Well, to your second question first, the pendulum always swings too far. We have too little regulation, we have too much regulation, and then it goes the other direction again. I'm looking, as I said, about the housing market and when you can borrow money again as 2 key indicators for me. But I think there's a third that is less important to me because there's very little that I don't have that I really need, and that's the consumer. The consumer basically is walking away. I mean, they're not buying fancy rings for girlfriends or, boyfriends or whatever. They're not buying things they don't need. And I think this is important to your generation because I think you've got it better than my own children's generation, my own children being 43 and 41. They've lived through all of this glory time where, you could step up and buy a bigger house or, who needs this cheap Chevy anymore? I'll lease a Mercedes-Benz. I think those days are gone, and I think your generation and what you get here at Samford is going to serve you in good stead because you're not going to go buy things that you can't afford to really own. So I am hopeful.
How about inflationary trends? Do you see inflation on the horizon?
Well, I think inflation rears its ugly head once the consumer comes back to the party, but not truly before.
Well, Well, let's all thank Bill Johnston for his appearance here today. Thank you, Bill. Thank you.